Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon, down in Nashville.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you are listening to our show, the Guitar Knobs podcast.
Right.
Yes.
And we're really excited because we've got another. I love finding new people. It's like there's so many great ones out there. And for the longtime listeners, we still have lots more to explore. And this one, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, person?
Well, hello. My name is Lance Gregory. I am the owner and master luthier at Rebirth Guitar Company.
Excellent. And where are you calling from?
We are in Denver, Colorado.
Right on. Now, I want to get one thing just out of the way real quick. I know there is another Rebirth out there. And so if you're searching for Rebirth guitars, make sure you put in Rebirth Guitar Co. All right, everybody? Because we like to, lots of people like to pull up on Instagram and see what we're talking about. So Rebirth.
That is correct.
Yes. Rebirth Guitar Co. And if you see a bunch of really wild woods and crazy colors and all kinds of cool stuff, you got to the right place.
We do all sorts of really, really crazy things.
Indeed. We're going to find out all about those really crazy things as we proceed down the rabbit hole we call our show. So anyways, buckle up. Hey, and if we've got first-time listeners, Tony, what can they expect? What do we do here at the Guitar Knobs?
We like to talk about gear, specifically boutique gear. Even more specifically, we like to talk to the people that make this gear.
Indeed.
And that's stuff like guitars and amps and pedals and accessories, all the good stuff.
And the movers and the shakers when we can get them.
All in one place. That's right. And occasionally we do what we call our 101 episodes, where we learn a thing or two about stuff that we should have known.
Yep.
That's right.
Those are Jared's favorite. And we got to line up a couple more of those. Jared, we've been talking about what some of those can be. So hopefully we'll be able to deliver a few more of those your way very soon.
That'll be fun.
All right, just a couple of quick announcements. We need to thank Rode Mics for providing our fantastic audio equipment and keeping us going years later.
Yeah.
It's like this stuff is brand new.
Yeah.
Because we keep it indoors mostly. But
well, yeah, I wouldn't use these outdoors or store them outdoors, I should say.
Yeah. So we have, I also wanted to bring up really quick. Tony, do you have anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say hi to Nick down at Roden, Australia.
Perfect. Jared, did you have any announcements?
Nah.
Okay. Well, I had one, and it is now I don't typically do this up front, but it's kind of there's a lot of movement trying to get this thing going. We were scheduled my band, the Valentinos, was scheduled to play at a really, semi-famous club here up towards Cleveland in the Canton area at Buzzbin. And unfortunately, Buzzbin is no longer. But we found that out well after the show was booked. And we are part of a tour called the Lightning and Thunder Tour. And we're playing with Makes My Blood Dance, which is a band out of New York, and several others. And we're going to be just on the outskirts of Cleveland on August 25th. And if you are anywhere near there, I would love to have you come and check us out. I would love to meet you. So please, if you're interested in that, you can contact me directly. We'll also have things available on the Valentinos Instagram. So, love to see you. I'd love to meet you in person.
Coming to Nashville?
At the moment, we're trying to get down to the Cobra in Nashville. I'd love to play the Cobra. And also, hey, if anybody's listening and you know me and you know our music and you're like, we'd love to have you come play with us and anywhere, please let me know. Okay?
I'll try to gather everybody I know down here. If you,
I know you
come
would.
Down here.
I will. I will try to make that happen.
There's two really great clubs right there near Vanderbilt U.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
See, I'm not as familiar with them. All I know is the Cobra
There's
because
one
it's
or
kind
two
of a.
great places here.
Oh,
to
I
play
know,
in
I know. But
Yeah.
the ones that I'm most familiar with.
You're right. You're right.
The In
All
and
right.
Out. Have you been down there yet, Jared?
The internet, I may have. I don't remember.
Yeah. I
Okay.
don't know.
I'm sorry.
We played at a cool place by Eastside Music Supply.
Oh, yeah.
Down there. I mean, we didn't play there. We watched a couple bands. Anyways,
Yeah.
this isn't the Valentinos podcast. This is a Guitar Knobs podcast.
I want to talk more about the Valentinos.
Well, I'd love to as well, but we don't have to because, but you can go listen to us on Spotify. All right. So let's see here. This week, let's talk about what we have going on in our music worlds this week. We're going to start off with Tanya Belansky sitting across from me. Then we're
Yes.
going to check in with our friend Lance Gregory all the way over in Denver, Colorado. Okay?
Okay.
Do it.
Well, Todd, the last time we got together, we had a little bit of an extended play discussing the new Guild Surfliner, which is a new model that Guild released back in June. And it's kind of it's their foray into, I guess, kind of a surfy kind of bolt neck, kind of longer scale, Fender-y thing. And it's actually, as we discussed, the street price on these things is $449. And
They list at $6 something.
$620 is what they
website.
list at, and they're $449 just about everywhere you look.
Okay.
And it's a really cool guitar. It's inexpensive. It's got some really nice pickups. It just so happened that I made a call to my buddy over at Guild and arranged to have one sent to me. And it is sitting here in the studio right now. And I've had a chance. It just literally arrived yesterday, and I had a chance to run it through a little bit of a showdown. But it's a really interesting. It's a big departure for Guild, I will say that. But the pickups are actually pretty good. The body design is not quite a jazz mastery. It's a little bit smaller, and it's. I got the white sage one, which is kind of a very pale minty color, minty gray. And overall, just for the first couple of days here, I am just I'm pretty impressed. I also brought to the studio a comparable instrument. It came out. It's a reissue from a few years ago. They called it the Jetstar, and it's basically a take on a model that they made back in the '60s. Now, this one is a set neck. It's got a little different pickup configuration, but it has the same headstock, which is 6 in line. And Guild only used that headstock for a very brief period of time in the 1960s. But they did bring it out on both of these models, as well as a Starfire model. So I think it's kind of cool, and it's
a great looking.
It's different.
They're awesome.
You couldn't, you can't hold it up to a Fender and say, "Oh, that looks exactly like a Fender."
No, it looks like It looks like a boutique guitar because most boutique guitars. Now this is okay. This is a dangerously sweeping statement, but the beauty of boutique guitars is they have the ability to kind of take influences from lots of different things and create their own. Mm-hmm. And this is, in effect, what they've done. Mm-hmm. It's a great little guitar.
Yeah, and I think it puts it in the price range of a lot of Squires and some other lower end instruments.
And it's unique looking.
And it's different. So it's not just a cheap Strat or a cheap Telly.
Yeah.
It is a unique guitar, and it's got 3 nice pickups in it. And it's overall pretty cool. So I'm going to run it through its paces again a little bit. I'm going to let you take it home with you, try it out, see what you think. And if anybody else out there is interested or has one, let's talk it up and see what.
It's cool because it is both of those are highly customizable.
Yes. Oh, yeah, because that's one thing one of the first things I did is I lifted the pick guard off, and it has a swimming pool route underneath the guard, which means
so you can get rid of that useless middle pickup.
If you don't want it. But you can put in theory, whatever pickups you want in there because it's routed out, like a big rectangle underneath the guard. So many, many different pickup configurations are possible.
Wow. That's cool.
Nice.
All right, let's go to Lance Gregory from Rebirth Guitar Company.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
What's new in your music week this world?
Oh
Yes.
my goodness. So many things. So many things.
No, remember, we're going to do the whole interview later, so this is, pick something easy and lightweight.
Working on guitars mostly. That's what I get to do all day, pretty much all night. I'm a workaholic, so
I can relate.
if I'm not in the shop, I'm just hanging out with my fam.
That's cool. That's cool. Anything? Pick out a singularly interesting thing that has happened in the shop this week.
A singularly interesting thing that happened in the shop this week. I had to dye a rainbow guitar, like a pink and purple and blue guitar.
Wow.
That I do a lot of dyeing on guitars, but this one was really extreme and way outside of something that I would do normally. So yeah, it's a pretty fantastic. It came out really, really, really well. I posted it on Instagram, I believe last week. And yeah, I've been working on that pretty much all day.
Is that a highly difficult method with the blending of the colors or being mindful of that?
Depending on the colors, for sure. If the colors are like right next to each other in the color wheel, they tend to blend into each other really well. But when they're like on opposite ends of this color wheel, like on this particular guitar, I have like pink right up against black.
Oh my!
And pink is not a very strong color, and black is an extremely strong color, and as far as dyes go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really hard to get those to contrast and to fade into each other really well. So yeah, it took a lot of time and a lot of patience. And yeah, the top is quilted maple and the back is mahogany. And the mahogany it's like a red color.
Yeah.
And the quilted maple is like a white color. So they don't look the same. So trying to make them look fairly similar is quite the task.
I can imagine.
Yes, and yeah, that's just one of several things going on in the shop this week. That was just today's work.
That's cool. Thanks for sharing, man. All right, let's hear what Jared's got going in his music world.
First of all, very bummed that I missed the last episode. Our air conditioning went out, so it was extremely hot upstairs. So James Pennington, I'm sorry, buddy. I did write him a message.
Good.
I've already been connected with James. We've had good conversation before. So
yeah.
Anyhow, I met a new friend. He's a friend of my dad's best friend that my dad grew up with, and I'm glad he's still around. But when I moved to Nashville, he said, "Hey, you gotta get a hold of my friend Mark and just go have lunch with him and meet and have a good time." And so, I texted him. I said, "Hey, just to let you know, I'm 6'6" and 340 pounds, just so that doesn't take you by surprise." And of course, he was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, you are a big guy," But he's got an interesting story. He started out in bands, and then he had a recording studio off to the side, and so he worked this little recording studio, and he also played live on the weekends. Eventually, he focused more on the studio, and he was getting small studio gigs like recording music that you would play on hold. When you call a corporation, there's on hold music. Well, Mark was producing that. And over time, he became more of a producer and didn't even record music anymore. He just put together on hold music. And that has evolved. He's done very well for himself. And he has a huge account with like UPS and big corporate accounts like that. So it was really interesting to meet him, how he started out with music and has a highly successful business.
Well, it just goes to show you don't have to be the big rock star or the big country star to make a living.
And nobody knows who the guy is.
Yeah. Sometimes that's better.
He said he dabbled in reselling a lot of guitars too. Like he said that Fender had a lot of B stock and they sold it to this company in Nashville. And he knew the guy. The guy was a client of his, so he started buying Fender would get rid of that stuff for 10%. He would buy the stuff at 60 or 70%, and there was still meat on the bone. And he had over 300 guitars at one time, and then he just sold them all on eBay. It took him 13 years to sell them all. We're gonna get together and have lunch again, and hopefully he'll be a new jam buddy.
That's cool.
How about you, Todd?
Well, let me tell you. So I've got this great Marshall Origin amp that I've been playing, and I really, really dig it. I'm speculating on the speaker choice within it, and I did replace the one in my combo amp with a Warehouse Guitar Speakers Invader, and I think what I'm going to do is, I think if I put 2 Invaders, so the cabinet that I got for this is a 212 cabinet. I'm concerned that if I put 2 Invaders, it's going to sound too invader-y. So I think what I am going to do is actually put in a Warehouse Invader as well as a Warehouse ET65.
What is an ET65?
An ET65 is it's a little bit more of a flatter tone to it, and the brights it's a little bit brighter, but it's not overly bright.
Is it a ceramic magnet or Alnico?
Ceramic.
So you're gonna have 2 ceramic magnets.
I was trying to mix tones, not necessarily magnets. Enlighten me, brother man.
Well, Alnico speakers work differently than ceramic speakers. Mm-hmm. And I think, in my opinion, this is strictly my opinion, I think having one of each actually makes for a much more interesting cabinet, especially if it's a 212. Mm-hmm. But that being said, there's a lot of companies that, have done nothing but sometimes mixing or matching ceramic speakers in a 2x12. And I think you'd be okay to do that. Mm-hmm. But if you can find 2 speakers that have maybe one of the speakers has a slightly lower bass response, different mid-peak, things like that. And the guitar warehouse speaker guys can, I'm sure, guide you through. Tell them what you want to do. I would give them a call and just say, here's what I want to do. I want to go for something that really kind of fills out the spectrum. And I'm sure that they can steer you in the right direction.
I will have to do that.
That's my suggestion.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and that's why we talk about these things on this show.
Yeah,
for that very reason. I hadn't even really considered that, even though we've talked about that many times.
Now, the other part of that is, if you're at a live show, which of the speakers do you mic?
Well, I would like to be able to mic both of them.
Okay. Well, you could do that.
I can, because I'm the only guitar player, so I'm going to say, look, chump. No, I like our sound guys. I always try to make friends with the sound guys, but I would definitely mic both of them. Well, anyways, we'll get it. I can solve that later, but I appreciate that. The only downside of getting an Alnico is that then, yeah, your cost goes like pretty high. So,
yeah. I mean, it's you almost have to hear it with your own ears, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've always mixed an Alnico in a ceramic. Like in my Z Best, I have a Alnico Gold, a Celestian, and then I have a UK Greenback. And I think that combination covers the spectrum a little bit better.
I just don't know that I'm ready to drop that kind of money on this.
Then don't do
just
it.
Yet,
just call those guys and tell them what you're trying to do, what your rig is, and I'm sure they may say just use 2 of the same speaker.
Well, I'm also very curious to know the difference between like what these speakers sound like in a fully closed back, because it's a closed back cabinet, as opposed to my combo, which is a kind of a semi-closed back.
Yeah.
So I don't know how different that's going to sound
different.
So, anyways, curious to see what happens. So that's what I got.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Tony.
I was at the shop today.
Yep.
And I'm testing out all kinds of crazy things. In fact, I got some new pedals that I was testing out.
Ooh.
And there's one very secret one that Mr. Esterly brought to me.
Oh, very cool.
Ooh.
But I can't go in to tell you any more about
I
it.
won't beg. How'd
can't-
you hook those up?
I used my secret supply of Tour Gear Design patch cables.
Well, that's a good idea
You know why?
because they work well.
They work well.
Because they're small.
They're small.
Yeah.
They have little teeny tiny things that plug in.
Yeah.
And the cables are flat.
They're flat.
They're very flat. And they come in
black.
millions of sizes.
Yes, lots and lots of
Right.
sizes. All the sizes that you need, and all the sizes you don't need. Actually,
Some
too.
that you never knew that you needed.
W shape.
W shape. Yes.
That's my patented one. They haven't made
right.
that yet.
So why don't you go over to tourgeardesigns.com and be like Tony
Be like me.
and Jared and myself, and when you put all the cables that you're going to get into
And you're going to get a bunch
the
of
shopping
them.
cart,
You're going to get a bunch of them.
drop
You may as well.
the guitar knobs in the coupon code. You're going to save 10% on your order. Okay,
All one word,
do it.
all lowercase. Save an extra 10%.
Yep.
And they get to you in a
Real
heartbeat.
quick. That's right. Thank you so much to Tour Gear Designs for sponsoring our 4 on the floor. Jared?
Let me get a little bit of this. 1, 2, 3. 4 on the floor.
All right, Lance Gregory from Rebirth Guitar Company out in Colorado. Tell us your 4 on the floor.
Oh, geez, my 4 on the floor. I definitely have to have a volume pedal. I definitely have to have a delay pedal.
Let's give us the details on the volume pedal. One at a
What
time.
is your volume pedal of choice?
I like that big old fat green alligator one, just because I can see it when I'm kind of blind and don't wear my glasses on stage because I like to go crazy.
Yeah.
So, and it's been a few years since I've been on stage, so yeah, I don't get to participate as much as everybody else does in this awesome conversation. But definitely for a delay, I was always a big fan of the Line 6 made a big green delay pedal that I really, really enjoyed. I had a lot of other pedals, but that one was my go-to.
The
on
DL4
tour.
is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that. I have to have
Well,
my tube screamer.
hang on real quick. But the alligator pedal. Tony and I both went like, "Rrr, what's that?" And that's actually made
No,
by
me too.
Morley.
Yes, the Morley one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct. Yeah.
How old is that? And when did that come out?
Ancient. I have no idea. I've had several of them over the years. It's got to be, from the looks of it, it looks like a big old 80s pedal.
Yeah.
Sounds about
That's
right.
'Cause I've had some 70s Morley pedals. I had that can, the oil can.
the
pedal.
oil can one. Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had some other. So I was like alligator. I'm like,
Yeah, this
well,
is-
he's not
this
talking
is-
about Morley.
This is the
Wrong.
black one with the wide footprint, the base. It actually has
Yeah,
a
yeah,
base.
yeah,
to it.
Massive.
I got you. That's cool.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that I can see it while I'm rocking out. I know where it's going to be. If I miss it a little bit when it's really important, like it's going to still work and my foot's still going to hit the pad.
Yeah.
So for me, having that big one for that particular pedal was always a really, really good benefit.
Yeah. You could actually get a little bit of acrylic paint there and just put here
Yeah,
Push.
right.
on it. Stomp.
I still wouldn't see it though. I would still be like, "What does that say? Well, why am I getting distracted?"
Yeah. Exactly. And then you said so. You mentioned the Line 6 DL4. Now they just released that, re-released it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic little pedal that I always had a great time with it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were cheap, they were replaceable. Back in the tour days when I would be all over the place, some pedals are really hard to find unless you're in the right spot at the right time. And I always tended to go for pedals that I could kind of find on the fly if I needed to. And that was definitely one of those ones. I went through a couple of them because I'm not nice to pedals.
Yeah. I can. You've got a couple of tanks in there so far. So what comes after that?
I gotta have my tube screamer, man.
You got a feeling a green theme here.
Oh, and it's funny because green is like my least favorite color. But I can see it on stage very easily. Um, I it tends to catch my eye for some reason. So maybe that's why. Don't know.
Yeah. And
But gotta have that tube screamer.
yep.
And then I gotta have a little bit of distortion. And the one that I'm using right now is it's a clone pedal from Chicago Stompworks,
Okay.
and it's an '80s Rat clone. The RATT, the Rats, like the band, and it was a pretty nasty, aggressive overdrive, very dirty. And I've always just really liked it a lot, so I had a clone made of it. And it's actually a double pedal. It's on one side it's got the Rat clone, and on the other side it's got an 808 clone of the Ibanez Tube Screamer. So
Oh wow.
I don't. So it's kind of two pedals in one. So I don't
Yep.
have to really like do a whole bunch of pedals anymore. So that's kind of my one, and that's Chicago Stompworks.
Didn't we run into those guys up at when we did the Chicago show that one year?
I'm trying to remember
I seem
if
to
we
remember
did or not.
those guys were there.
I don't know. I can't. I don't recall if we ran into them. Wait, yeah, actually, I feel like we did because they had the It's the Vermin. Is the Mr. Vermin? Yeah, I do think that we did because they the other one was the Gray Speck.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that one. So yeah, they were actually just started. They've added quite a few pedals since then.
They have. That's like kind of an old one, but one that I had kind of custom made for me.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. It's a little pedal. Doesn't have a lot of
Super
bells and whistles
affordable
to it.
pedals too, man.
Yeah.
Super affordable. I like affordability. And it was an all metal case, really rugged design and construction because I beat the crap out of that thing.
Yeah.
And it's still going strong to this day. So
That's cool.
I do have to say, I really like the construction, the tone of it. It's the Rat clone is really, really close to my Rat.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's just really cool. So now I just got the two pedals, basically in one. I like minimal stuff in front of me. I'm not a huge pedal board guy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a pretty small pedal board, so anything that I can do to minimize that even more, I like.
Well, it's a lot smaller with those other ones on there.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I got these really massive pedals, so you end up with the same size pedal board, but like three massive pedals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will also say, I do have like a fifth one that I have to do like an honorable mention.
Oh, go ahead.
Because I'm a big fan of the Strymon. I believe it's the Big Sky.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That is truly one of my all-time favorite pedals. I don't use it a lot because I'm not a pedal guy, but man, do I sure love that pedal.
Well, I mean, that's been mentioned on our Four on the Floor so many times, so you're in good company.
Good.
Yeah. Also a big pedal. Yeah, little
A
pedal
big
board.
pedal, but it's really expensive pedal.
Yeah.
And I don't like spending a ton of money on gear. If I can get by with something that's a little less expensive, I am going to try to do that.
Yeah. Oh, that makes
It's
sense.
actually, it's what got me into guitar building in the first place. So you can see how that worked out.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a perfect segue. You've mentioned some great pedals, but this show's all about learning more about what you do and the guitars that you make. I'll just kind of give us a little bit of an intro here. We had actually a couple people say, "Hey, you need to check these guys out," and like we say all the time, it's like I look at Instagram. Honestly, it's ridiculous how much I'm on it, and just trying to find new things, new brands, new gear, and stuff like that. And someone said, "Hey, you need to check out Rebirth Guitar Co. They're out of Colorado. They're making some really cool stuff." And I think, so I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'll check it out." And did, and had a great call with you right out of the gate. I was like, "This is a super nice dude," which makes so much difference when you are spending money, when you are shopping something out, when you're trying to make a big decision like a guitar, and you can actually talk to the person who's building your thing, and they're you're a nice dude, and we got along really well. And I was like, this is the kind of person that you'd want to sit down and say, yeah, man, tell me what you want. Let's do it. So I was really encouraged by that, and especially having checked out a lot of the guitars that you have on Instagram. You definitely like to experiment with wood. Why don't you tell us about right out of the gate? Like, let's get into some of where you got into the wild wood thing.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for the wonderful compliments.
Sure.
I got, I kind of fell into this by accident. So I used to be a professional touring musician for many years, and I used to do a lot of recording for other artists and writing songs and stuff. And after like 4 years of that nonstop, I got really tired of that and just kind of quit and needed something else to do. So I decided to like build a parts caster, like kind of everybody else, and I just I got hooked instantaneously. I was like, well, this is the coolest thing. I want to do it for real. Like, I want to start getting all the tools together and trying to figure out how to build one from scratch. And so that's kind of where I began. And that was in 2016. I've only been doing it for a few years now. As far as my love of wood, man, I love trees. I think they're the coolest thing on the planet. The more I learn about them, the cooler
You're
they
obliged
are.
to say that living in Colorado, I believe.
It's funny. We're like mostly treeless in a lot of ways. We have a lot of dead pine trees and a lot of dead ash trees. So that's always fun. But as I started exploring wood and all of its capabilities and stuff, I really started to really hone in on really cool looking pieces of wood and trying to kind of use my mind's eye, if you will, to kind of see what it would look like when I cut it open and kind of book match the top. So book matching is a process of kind of slicing the wood in half and then opening it up like a book.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the grain and all of the structures of the wood are kind of mirror images of each other, hopefully.
Yeah.
Doesn't always work out that way, but you're always trying for that. And it's a huge process. We use a lot of reclaimed wood. So like a lot of this wood that we use is like destined for the wood chipper. In Colorado, we have really extreme climate, and it does not fare well for most trees. We have heavy winds, huge wet storms, and trees break here a lot. And most of them just end up in the wood chippers or in the dump. So I started exploring kind of cutting these big logs into slabs and kind of going that route of taking wood that's really unwanted and bringing it back to life. And since it was kind of a new version of me, since I'm not a musician like that I was before, Rebirth kind of just came to mind, and voila, that's kind of how it all happened.
That's a great story, man. I appreciate you sharing that, and also that knocks down another question of how did you get to the name Rebirth Guitar Co. Now, I do have as we're talking about the wood up there, when we're talking about guitars, wood seems to be one of the things that is just like, oh yeah, you use this wood or that wood, and I can get it from anywhere that I can order wood and anywhere around the world, blah, blah, blah. Somebody like you who's finding indigenous wood more often than not, I would imagine.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. We do a lot. We do also other stuff too, like quilted maple is a highly regulated tree.
Uh-huh.
You have to win a lottery and be one of the licensed millers in order just to cut it. So that one comes from a well-trusted source.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I know it's going to be well taken care of. Other things like roasted maple that I use for a lot of necks. I get that from one guy in Canada, and he literally is a logger. That's what his job is. And he finds good trees and saves them for himself and makes them into guitar decks for me and
that's awesome.
a lot of other people. So,
well, to the wood that you don't have to get from out of Colorado, I don't know much about I guess what are the indigenous species are in different states, other than kind of like the super duper obvious ones. But in Colorado, do you have trees that are like, if it's special because it's from here, because it kind of only grows here?
There's only a few trees that grow here natively. Obviously, there's several species of pine trees that grow up in the mountains. On the plains, there was not a whole lot before the cities were kind of started. Mm-hmm. There was mostly cottonwood trees, which is kind of related to poplar. Mm-hmm. And it's a big, giant tree, generally grows kind of by creek beds or creek sides. But as Europeans started slowly progressing this way, they brought a lot of invasive species. And we have a ton of invasive species of trees. Things like the Russian olive is a really, really bad tree here. And you can't even plant them here. You have to have them cut down if they get too big. They're really, really squirrely trees, not fun. Big thorns on them. And there's several of those. Places like Denver, we are a big sprawling suburb city, right? Mm-hmm. So we have suburbs everywhere, and people have planted ornamental trees. They've planted trees that aren't supposed to grow here, and maybe can't really tolerate a high wind or a really dry, hot soil or climate. So those trees kind of fall down after about 20, 30, 50 years. Mm-hmm. And, they have to get, taken out and removed. So there's tons of species of trees here in Denver. Denver is considered kind of one urban forest, and I think one of the largest urban forests in the world. So there were no trees here before, and now there's like millions of trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Our most predominant tree is the ash tree. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of northern ash, very, very heavy wood. Not my favorite.
Does it have good figuring?
It does. Mostly because if it's stressed at all during its life, it's going to grow in a very ununiform way. Mm-hmm. And we live in a stressful climate, so there's always a lot of really cool grain in the wood.
That's a good point. Yeah. I will say, there's an awful lot of people that make guitars out of exotic woods and stuff. And I think one of the things that Tony and I, as we looked through, we're spending some time just before the show and previously after I said, hey, you should come on the show. As we were looking at them, we kept holding them up and going, whoa, look at this one. And I think that says a lot, because it's one thing to say, I've got this super exotic wood, but I think you have a really good eye in catching unique aspects of that wood. It isn't just you're not just simply the go-to matchbook. You're finding different oddities and interests in the wood that make it into your design, complemented by some of the the paint and the dyes that you're using.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a very, very nice compliment. Yeah, I'm a kind of a bit of a nerd, so I really like to study things, and I got a bit of a hyper attention, so I can really focus for long hours on really random things that most people wouldn't really like. So I dive down a lot of different types of rabbit holes, and as I start looking at grain and stuff, I start looking for the cool stuff. I want something that's cool looking. Mm-hmm. Not just like a regular old boring old piece of wood.
Yeah.
And most of all of that good stuff is on a piece of wood that looks like junk. Like when you see it, it looks like it's half rotten, big old knots and gross things everywhere, and you're like, that's not going to work good for you. You should really try something more stable. And over time, we've had to fight a lot of pieces of wood to make them guitars, because a lot of these pieces of woods that we use, they don't want to really work. They have a lot of stress still built up inside the pieces of wood, especially the burls. And they don't want to play nice. So you fight them from the beginning. From the beginning to the end, they will fight you. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears sometimes to get these things to really come out the way that they do. And and it's really difficult to find the right spot, on the piece of wood to be like, hey, that's a guitar. This is not. Like it's really hard to decide. So I spend hours and hours just kind of looking and moving things a little bit, and then moving it back and being like, oh, I kind of liked it better where it was. And, so I do that a lot.
So how much of the wood that you're going through do you reject, or do you reject any of it?
Well, not much. There's always waste involved. But I try to minimize the amount of waste. So like for a lot of the body woods that we use, I use a lot of orchard cherry, which is kind of like it's kind of a little bit more sustainable alternative to alder. They're in the same family, but it's a much prettier wood, tad heavier. It has all the same tonal qualities to it that alder does. And it comes from orchards. It's the same cherries that you get from the grocery store. And cherry trees stop producing cherries as they get older. So they have to remove them from the orchard and plant new ones.
There's pills for that.
So, so you're kind of reusing the same piece of land. You're not deforesting areas. You are, but you're not. You know what I mean? Like, you're not directly responsible for it. And, I think we all need to be a little bit more earth conscious. And so I think something like orchard cherry is a really good alternative.
So how big of logs, how wide of logs can you get from an orchard cherry?
Well, generally speaking, they're about 12 to 15 inches wide at the thickest point. Your average guitar is about that, so you can get one-piece bodies.
Nice.
I generally prefer a two-piece body, mostly for stability. I think it looks better. You get more character in the wood. And there's less likely a chance of it warping on you later in life.
Yeah.
As wood doesn't, it never dies. It moves all the time.
How wide did you say they were?
They can get about 15 inches wide. Sometimes bigger. It just depends on the orchard and how well managed it is.
Yeah,
and they have great figure. They look beautiful. If you look at on our Instagram, we post a lot of the backs of guitars as well. And you can see orchard cherry. I just posted this fire fade one that goes from a red to a yellow as it goes from the base, and the back of that one is orchard cherry.
Okay.
And that's a fantastic looking wood. Really, really pretty. Has that same kind of honey blonde color that alder does. So really cool.
Yeah.
Are you doing any chambering or weight relief on some of the woods or the bodies?
Yeah, if requested, or if I feel like the guitar might be too heavy based on how dense the piece of wood is. So for a lot of these woods, the more figured they are, so the more crazy stuff they have going on, generally the heavier they are. So yeah, sometimes we will definitely chamber them, and but a lot of times we don't have to. Most of the guitars that we've been doing recently fall within the 5-pound range for a body.
Okay.
Which is quite average and equals about a 7 to 8 pound guitar at the end of the day. So I usually figure anything under 9 pounds is pretty comfortable.
Okay. And on your necks, are you using primarily maple?
Depending on the customer. My personal choice is always going to be roasted maple.
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Being roasted or torrefied, it kind of melts the sugar crystals inside the wood. So most all of this is what we call rock maple or sugar maple, same place that you get your maple syrup from. And so the wood is just really high in sugars. And when you melt those at a certain temperature, they will recrystallize in the pores of the wood and make it rock hard and really lightweight. So you don't get bad neck dive.
Why does it make it
They're just
lightweight?
because you've sucked up all of the water, like all of it has been baked out. So there's literally like no moisture left in it. So it's a very stable piece of wood. It's basically like it's air dried for 30 years,
Right.
but
Except different.
it hasn't.
Yeah. Final question on the wood. The fingerboard. What are you using for that?
That depends. That's the one contention in guitar making that I have yet to be able to solve. Things like an ebony fretboard just look amazing, and there's not really like a local or even like anything in the United States. There's no domestic product that's really close to that. That's not like fake. So we do use a lot of ebony. So that's the only thing that's really unfortunate. I do make sure that I get it from a CITES registered source, so that those trees have been licensed and cut down ethically and not using child labor and crazy things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's pretty bad in a lot of countries. We use a lot of pale moon ebony, which we get sourced directly from Java, Indonesia. And that tree is that's endemic to like one island in Indonesia.
Wow.
They've planted it in other places, and now there's plantations, kind of like on the mainland, if you will. But yeah, that's a very, very rare piece of wood, and I make sure to get it from a source that is well trusted and is not getting it. It's not poaching the wood.
Right.
Are you opposed to using like composite type boards or like, I guess, non-exotics?
No, I'm not opposed to it at all. There's things like Rich Light, which is kind of a product, but them versus the ebony.
There's manufactured ebony
product.
boards.
Yeah, they're fantastic, and they're definitely like the way of the future. So yeah, at this point in time, we still use ebony. I use a lot of B grade ebony, which is has a lot more figure in it because I like crazy and interesting pieces of wood.
Right.
And most of the B grade stuff nobody wants because it's kind of brown and not solid black. So a lot of that ends up going in the fire pit. So I like to pick the ones that are kind of destined for the fire pit.
Nice.
Any chance I get.
Nice. I think we got a big question from our buddy Jared across the states.
All right, bring it to me.
Oh yeah. So you got these beautiful exotic wood guitars. What are you using to power the sound? Like, what's your choice of pickups? Who do you go to?
Oh man, we're vendors for a ton of different pickup companies. A couple local guys here in town that make really fantastic pickups. My number one and number two is Lindy Fralin Pickups.
He's going to be on the show next week.
Lindy is an amazing guy. Tell Lindy that Lance says hi from Rebirth Guitar Company. I haven't talked to him in a couple months because he was at
NAMM. On the phone, you're on the phone forever with him.
Oh yes, yeah. I talk to Lindy pretty regularly. He's a really upstanding guy. I order a lot of pickups from him. We also use a lot of Fishman pickups. Fishman is a really, really great pickup in my opinion. They're really versatile and do lots of cool things. But we also have to kind of do what the customer wants. So not every customer wants those things. So obviously we do a lot of teamwork.
Marzio and stuff like that.
Yeah. But if it's my choice or if like the customer wants a recommendation from me, Lindy Fralin is going to be my top choice for anything that's not metal. It's just the best. They really take their time. They're always such an articulate pickup with such a great sound. My favorite ones are the he has the I forget what they're called all of a sudden. The split rail pickups, which are kind of like a noiseless single coil. And They sound really, really good. I have them in my personal build, and yeah, they're just fantastic. So those are my top two for sure. But like I said, we use everything.
Yeah.
That's yeah. There's a lot to choose from out right now, and it's funny that you mention him because we've been trying to get Lindy on for a while, and actually just solidified that with him this week. So we're gonna have a little test run this weekend and just have a chat over the phone and make sure everything is all good. And he's excited to come on. We're excited to have him. It should be a good time.
That's awesome.
Next
They've
episode.
they've really grown. Like 'cause they I'm constantly parading their name any chance I get. If I see something on Facebook or Insta, it's like, hey, what pickup should I use? I'm always like, Fralin. So,
Now the pickups that you were talking about, the split blade, is that what they
yes,
are?
yeah, the split blade. Yeah, they have like two blades that come down. They're a noiseless pickup, noiseless single coil,
Uh-huh.
and they are very articulate and very single coily. They're, like the Fender noiseless ones get a lot of beef because they're really dull. They don't really have a lot of life. They tend to be a little muddy. But these ones are not. These ones are really clear and articulate, and I get plenty of Strat sounds. I like chicken picking. I like doing a lot of honk and quack. So any chance I get to do those things and a guitar that'll do them for me, I love.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the fact that I don't have to like turn down my volume instantaneously just to stop that 60 cycle hum. It's pretty good for me.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, from a pickup builder's standpoint, can you explain a little bit what exactly the split is doing?
Well, it's basically a tiny little humbucker. So you're just canceling out the 60 cycle hum, and that's the main purpose for that. However, the magnet structure with the steel blades also provide a much higher and a more situation where you can have more articulation and versus the
Single pole type thing?
versus the noiseless pickup that he compared it to Fender, and that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
And that's a totally different magnet structure and build altogether. It's I mean, they do. I think some of the models might kind of sound chimey, but not. You don't get the highs articulation you do with a rail pickup, like a small. Because number one, the blades are real close together, and the closer together you have, a north and a south, a humbucker configuration, the more thin, maybe thin's not the best word. Well, but you're not gonna have as many lows. It's not gonna, like a wide range pickup is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like a Fender wide range, where the poles are very far apart from each other, even more so than a standard humbucker.
Oh, I see. So yeah, if you think about how the structure if you're looking at the top of a wide range, you got the three poles on one side way up in the left, and you got the three on the right way down at the bottom. That's the distance that you're talking about?
That's the distance that we're talking about.
Gotcha.
But I mean, even with the cover off, it's just the size of the coils and the structure of the pickup itself is going to decide the overall frequency response. So you have a high frequency response with the single coil size rail humbuckers that Lindy makes. There's a lot of other pickup builders that make these rails, but Lindy Fralin, when he builds a pickup, he does it really well.
Yeah.
And he's done that forever, and he still does rewinds too.
Yeah.
And that's what he's been known for. But we're going to hear more about him next week.
Yeah,
But,
indeed.
There's your sound difference. So
Thank
I
you.
mean that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And
Yep,
it
and
sounds wicked in your
I
guitar.
can second all of that information. Yeah, that's exactly correct. They're basically like little mini humbuckers, but they definitely don't sound the same. That magnet structure really is a really important thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Lindy nailed it with those.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's good.
So, as far as let's talk about your overall guitar design. We've spoken a lot about your materials and sort of some of the choices that you're doing when you're crafting things. What are some of your early inspirations, and have those changed? Who are you inspired by now? Let's talk about both of those.
Sure. So I love all music. So I listen to all types of music. Everything from like world music to hip hop to classic rock, which is kind of my forte. I was kind of born in the wrong generation. I'm like a huge Beatle fan, love Skinner and the Allman Brothers and Jethro Tull. And so I was born totally in the wrong decade. But yeah, as far as like what inspired me to play guitar, gosh, I was actually kind of forced into it. My mom had a guitar. My sister played it. She was going to sell it, or somebody had to play it. So I learned how to play it, and I really loved it. The minute that I put it in my hands, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I would just spend hours and hours playing. My first real electric guitar was a Gibson Firebird.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I got one in 97. It was a 701st one made in the year. And I played that thing at the Guitar Center like every chance I could. They eventually just put it like in the case and put it like behind the counter because they knew this kid was just going to come in here and play on it. I was the only one who ever looked at it. And I did everything I could to save up for it. It went on sale. And yeah, I got it for like $900, which was amazing. I had like $800 saved up, so like my mom supported the rest, and
That's
yeah,
cool.
I ended up with the Gibson Firebird, which I still own today. So I used to love big guitars; they were my favorite. Like I like big, giant, heavy, in your face aggressive guitars that weren't like super metal. Because I'm not a super big metal guy, even though I build a lot of metal guitars. Like we have a ton of metal artists that buy our guitars, so I do love metal, but it's not my forte.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so as far as it goes, my influences are definitely the old guys, like I just mentioned. Love the Beatles, love Jethro Tull, love me the Allman Brothers. Dwayne Allman's probably my favorite guitar player of all time.
Well, there's your Firebird.
Yeah, it's funny. He played a Les Paul, and I hate Les Pauls. I've owned 7 of them, and I've sold every one of them. I can't ever get on them. They're not my thing. So I love looking at them, though. Woo!
Yeah.
I think they're probably one of the prettiest guitars ever made. So as far as my modern influences, I love Animals as Leaders. I love Polyphia. I love a lot of the new guys on what they're doing. I think they're really progressing guitar in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
And they get a lot of hate from the old guys, but man, I sure do love them. I think they're really, really good musicians. So yeah, that's kind of the things that I'm into these days. I listen to a lot of world music, so you might find me listening to like some Bulgarian folk music or something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you get the chance, who wouldn't? Right?
Well, I get made fun of if I mention, Gordon Lightfoot, but
Gordon Lightfoot's great.
I actually was listening to him today. He came up on my mix.
I've been listening to him for the last 2 years, and I can't stop.
Yeah.
He's good. I think
not his big hits, like his. If you go back to the beginning on YouTube and look for,
You mean if you could turn back time?
and he does a great rendition of that. You should look for it.
So if I'm a customer or a potential customer that would like to get a hold of you, what is the process like? Do I message you? Do I tell you what I'm looking for?
Do you have a stock? Are they all custom built?
So 99% of the stuff that we do is all custom made per order. And it's done to the customer specs. So most people just message me through Facebook or through Instagram, but we also do emails and phone calls and things like that. And you can also go on the website and message me that way. But that's a rarity, actually. Most people just contact me through Messenger on Facebook or Instagram. And we just start the conversation. Like, what is your dream guitar? Like, what kind of guitar are you looking for? most people will just see one of the guitars that we post, and like that's the guitar that they want.
Yeah, I think that's not uncommon. I mean, even I make pick guards, and until someone actually sees, what that might look like on their instrument. So I always try to, do some photoshopping and stuff like that if they send me a picture, so they can actually see it. Because most people, I don't think, can imagine what something is going to look like. But if they see
a good craftsman can help them do that.
Yeah, but if you see a picture of it, or at least a reasonable facsimile, it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And, I don't think a customer should know all this stuff. Like, when I used to play guitar all the time for a living professionally, I didn't know anything about guitars. Like, I knew how to tune it and, like, change my strings and, like, some basic setup stuff. But, like, I didn't know how much work went into building my guitar. I didn't really ever think about that. That's my job as a luthier, is to inform you about your options, about where things come from. And, hopefully you gain some knowledge about how a guitar works and how much time and effort goes into it.
Yeah.
So when we start the process, like most guys, they love the tellies. Tellies are huge. We do a lot of cool, amazing tellies, 8-string, 7-string madness. A guy will see that and he'll be like, "Oh man, I really want an 8-string telly. You posted this black one, but my favorite color is like blue and purple." So we kind of come up with a design, and we kind of come up with like all of the hardware and stuff that they want and the pickups and stuff. And then we just kind of give them a rough estimate, make sure that it's something that they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, if they're serious and they want to proceed, we'll write them up an invoice, and they can choose to pay it like outright, or our shop policy is 50% down, 50% upon completion. That just allows us to buy all the materials, all of the hardware and the pickups and everything. And then, or you can make payment plans. We're musicians. Like, I struggled my whole life as a musician, so I don't expect people to not have to like really struggle, to buy a custom instrument.
Sure.
The payment plans, are a way to kind of relieve that worry. Like, how I really want this, but like I could never afford that.
Yeah.
But we make it really obtainable, and I really try to keep the prices competitive and, right on par with what you would see like a factory guitar go for. So our average price is about $2,400, but guitars started at $1,800.
That's fantastic, man. It's so gratifying getting something that you are working with somebody, whether it's a guitar, an amp, a pedal, or whatever, but there's something special about a guitar, because that is the closest of all the gear that we have that is the most, I guess, representative of you as a player. And when you are able to have that made for you, it's like, the one that Chase built for me is like, I mean, the other guys, there's just no way that those can compare to it. Not necessarily. I mean, that one is better. I know that for a fact. But even if it wasn't, it still has this intangible, sentimental connection, not just a value, but an actual connection, because I was part of the build, and then it's so gratifying. Figure out a way to get into a handmade guitar if you can.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's a cool process for everybody. I mean, not always, not every luthier matches every client, but, it's a fun process. Like, you get sent pictures of like all the stages as they come, through the process. And it's really cool to see your guitar kind of just magically come together.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time doing it, and I try to really focus on what the customer wants. And it's really difficult because I've never met these guys. Most of them are from different states or different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what their hand looks like, or what, profile they like on their neck, or, so a lot of those things can be really difficult to nail down the first time. But, as a luthier, that's what I'm here for. If we don't get it right the first time, let's try it again, and we'll keep trying until we get it right.
So is it primarily, is it just you in the shop, or do you have some help?
I do. I have one partner. His name is Austin. He is not like a full-time employee, as he works his own job himself.
Right.
But yeah, he's about the only help that I have. I do about 80% of the work myself. Yeah, so it's a lot of hours in the shop.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah. But my shop is in my backyard. I built a little wood shop just for myself, and it's a place where I can still focus on the kids and still focus on the family. For me, that's
awesome,
also
man.
really important. We have 2 adopted girls that we adopted through foster care. We were formerly foster parents for a while. So kids are like a really important part of my life as well. So
I love it.
if
I love it.
if I'm not building, I'm hanging out with them. So
Yeah.
And you can bring them in, and they
you
can
go.
start doing the work, and you cut back to 40%.
yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because me and my youngest daughter, we're actually doing a really cool ocean guitar with
Nice.
with sand and waves, and we've been working on it for about 3 days now, and we got about another 4 days left before we can do any actual guitar work. So
that's cool.
yeah, it's
You
been
have
a
epoxy, right? Use some
it's all
little
done with epoxy, yeah, and
That's so-
garden sand.
Yeah.
awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it's just a fun experiment, something that teaches her, well, and it teaches me too. I've never done it, so we're kind of learning together, and it makes it a really fun process.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for sharing so much of your story. I mean, I know there's more to it, but I think we've given everybody out there who hasn't heard of Rebirth Guitar Company, some interest, and those who are familiar, just that much more reason to dig your brand. So we really do appreciate it, and appreciate the work that you're doing out there, not only just for your customers, but for you're adding to the guitar world, and that's really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on as well. It's been an awesome experience.
No problem. We've got a little thing that we're going to saddle up the El Camino. We're going to take it for a spin and drive by and grab Jared. Jared, you wanna go?
Yep, I do. And while we're traveling in the old El Camino, we're going to play a little game called Would You Rather?
Wow,
That was beautiful.
love it.
I'm
That
gonna
was
give an
pretty good.
applause real quick here.
Must have been the enchiladas.
Oh,
Yeah.
bravissimo.
Yes.
This week's Would You Rather comes from good old Bruce Bacon. I mean, this guy.
Bacon.
That's right. Not only does he have a tasty last name, but he can spit out the Would You Rathers like nobody else.
Absolutely.
So this week's Would You Rather is a tribute to the long gone Pro Guitar Shop. We all have seen the fabulous demos that Andy, Martin, and Brett Kingman produced during the heyday of Pro Guitar Shop. Each guitarist has their own guitar style, gear, production, and presentation method. Both are incredible. So would you rather actually become one of them? Who would it be?
All right, we're gonna kick it off with Tanya, aka Tony, and we're gonna then go to Jared, and then over to Lance, and then myself. Tony.
Well, Todd,
Yeah.
we had Brett on.
I do. I know him
recently
intimately.
right on this very podcast.
Yes. Brett Kingman.
Brett Kingman. And I think, I liked what he had to say about the things that he's doing. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm more familiar with him. My apologies to Andy, but I think I'm going to be Brett for a day.
Dig it.
That's me. That's me choice.
Okay. All right. Jared.
Brett.
Good call.
Can you expound upon that?
I like his name. My older brother's name's Andy, but Andy used to beat me up when we were kids.
That's fair enough.
So Brett Kingman.
It's
I'm
a
gonna
hard
be you.
thing. They're both so talented.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
They are, man.
Different styles, but yeah.
Keep calm and rock on. That's him.
how about Lance?
I don't have enough information on this subject to give a qualified answer, so I'm going to play the politician and say they are both equal and awesome.
He's going to be Brandy.
Well,
Nice.
yeah. So as we mentioned, these are names that are super well known in our community. Andy Martin, who's now been, he's been doing all the demos for Reverb for a long time now. He's the guy without a pick. He plays a really weird finger style and is able to be super articulate with his thumb and his forefinger together like he had a pick, but there is no pick. It's pretty remarkable. And multi-instrumental, the whole 9 yards. And then Brett, of course, we had on the show, and he's touring musician, loads of gear, loves the gear, lots of different styles. I think he focuses a little, quite heavily on like just like straight up rock, and he can get a little bit more experimental with stuff. I'm going to make it unanimous. I'm going with Brett here. Semi-unanimous anyways, because Lance is on neutral island, which I understand.
Switzerland.
Only guts can do that. By the way.
Yeah. I really like, I like Brett's attack on things, honestly, with guitar. And, I just kind of gravitate a little bit more towards him. Not taking anything away from Andy, of course. And, but Bruce, that was a great question. I think it's a very hard question. I think we are a little bit biased because Brett was on our show and he was a great dude.
Yeah.
So thank you for sending those in. And seriously, like he sent that in at like 1 a.m. And, I love the fact that he's thinking about guitar stuff and our show and you, the audience, on how to entertain you. That's really cool. So thank you so much, Bruce. Brucey, as Brett might say. Anyways, Tony, we got a couple people to thank.
That is right, Todd, because at this point of the show, we like to thank a very special group of people. These are our executive producers. Now, somebody out there might be wondering, what is an executive producer?
I think Lance was just about to ask that. Lance, were you just about to ask that?
Can you please inform me on what an executive producer does and what their job title is?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because executive producers make this show possible. How do you become one? Very simple. Go over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs and check out a couple different levels in which you can participate, become a sponsor, a patron of this very podcast. Each level comes with a wonderful thank you gifts.
Lots of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. I mean, trust me. Just check it out for yourself. But there's one thing more as an executive producer, and what is that, Jared?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers: Moon Guitars, Vader Pedals, Drew Lopez, John Halverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Mike D, Richard Kendall, Mark Garton, Matt Hart, James White, Justin Jones, Anthony Gemalero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, John Anglin, Tom Barazin, Rusty Sneeden, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, Brett Hogarth, Eric Hemmer, and Stuart George. Thank you.
Indeed.
But Todd,
But
we have a special group of executive producers.
I knew you were going to say that.
We like to call them our grand poobahs.
Just had 2 of them on in the last 2 episodes.
I think I remember that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest benefits of being a grand poobah is you have a fez that you wear upon your head.
Yeah.
Well, listening.
And even more stuff.
And even more stuff. Stuff, you just can't believe the
Yeah.
stuff. The stuff is there. So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Igareda,
Yes.
David Kaminga, Brandon Wound Pickups, Hex Matos, Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jack Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler Rhines, OSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robison, Jonathan Jeruzik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. And Eddie Serratos, and David Poe.
Yes. He got the extra pass and migrated on up to the Grand Poobah suite.
Yes.
We really love that. Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much. It truly means so much to us, and it does help us out incredibly. We want to thank our friend Lance Gregory from Rebirth Guitar Company. Thank you for joining our show tonight, my man.
Thank you for having me. This was an awesome experience.
Good. Glad to hear it. Tell your friends about it.
I most definitely will. I only have like 2. But
Tell
That's
them
2 more
about
than we
it.
have now.
Yes. We just want to make sure that everybody out there has a fantastic Guitar Week. Thank you so much for listening to our show. And subscribe!
Video killed the radio star.
I think you're calling from a 1920s record player.
Gramophone.
Did you? Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.